Hi, it's Miriam Mills here from Breathe, Flow, Balance, and today I'd like to talk about communication and to give you some practical tips on communicating with our children. So, effective communication is when we're talking to a person, they're listening, they're absorbing what we're saying, and they understand what we're saying. So when we have good communication with our children, it'll build stronger relationships with our children. They'll have a higher sense of self-worth and self-esteem, and they're more likely to cooperate. So obviously communication is a two-way thing, so we want to be able to talk to our children and not at our children. So firstly, let's talk about what active listening is. And we've all had the experience when, or the feeling that we're talking to somebody and we haven't quite got their attention, and they're being distracted, and it's not a nice feeling. So it's the same for our children. So we want to be firstly present when we're communicating with our children and give them our full undivided attention. Put down our cell phone, put away the devices, so there's no interruptions, no distractions, and we give them our full attention with eye contact. So it's very important that your child knows that you're present and fully able to listen to what they're saying. It's very, very important. So we give eye contact to our child and we show interest in what they're saying, using sort of non-verbal body language such as nodding. And this encourages your children to talk, and we ask probing questions and open-ended questions, which allows them to develop on their verbal skills and to express themselves. And then what we need to do secondly is to paraphrase, so we ensure that there's no misunderstanding in what we think has been said and what's actually been said. So we use paraphrasing. An example of this would be you'd say something like, so what you're saying is da 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 da, or am I correct in saying that you feel this way? Something like that. And then also the non-verbal cues are very important, and we can also pick up on non-verbal cues we get from listening to our child, and these can be clues to verify their feelings and often the conversation further, allowing the adult. So it's also important to pick up on the non-verbal cues that your child's given to you regarding, for example, their posture or their eye contact or lack of eye contact, the tone of their voice, the gestures that they use with their body. And so you might be able to say, for example, oh, you sound very pleased about that, John, or you sound a little bit anxious about that, Mary, or I noticed you sounded a little bit anxious when you mentioned whatever. So after we have been present and fully listening to our child, paraphrasing what they've said to make sure that we understand what it is that they meant, then we pick up the non-verbal cues, their eye contact, their gestures, their tone of voice, etc. And then we summarize. So we pull all the conversation that we think we've listened to and we summarize it. So we might say something like, overall, it sounds like you had a really good day at school. And so we pull all the information together and summarize what it is we think we have heard and make sure that is correct. So let's talk about rules and boundaries. Firstly, children like rules, structure and guidelines. When there is a structure, when there are guidelines, the child knows what's expected and what's allowed and what's not allowed. And so then they can make the choices for themselves to either obey or disobey the rules and the boundaries, and it is for this reason that the consequences for breaking the rules or boundaries need to be established and agreed upon. So when the parent's setting the ground rules, it's important to ask the child to repeat them back so that there's no misunderstanding and no room for the child to be able to say, well, I thought you meant that, and I thought that was allowed, and I thought you said that. So when you are agreeing boundaries and rules, ask your child to repeat them back so that there is no room for error. Clear communications, clear instructions, so that they're understood and no room for miscommunication. So the next thing is then to talk about the consequences of not following the rules or instructions, and these two also need to be agreed with your child. So for example, you might say something like, it's a lovely day, would you like to go to the park? And Johnny says, yes, I'd love to go to the park. So then you might say, okay, before we go to the park, I'd like you to pick up all the dirty clothes on your bedroom floor. I'd like you to put away your Lego, and I'd like you to make your bed. 3 instructions. When you've done that, we can go to the park. Let me know when you're done. So little Johnny will then repeat the instructions. He knows he's got to tidy the dirty clothes off the floor, put them in the laundry basket, he's got to tidy away the Lego, and he's got to make his bed. So he repeats these instructions back so there's no misunderstandings. And then there's no need to keep asking, have you tidied your room, Johnny? Repeatedly, or asking, has he done his chores in order to go to the park? So the responsibility lies with little Johnny to do the chores in order to get his reward, which is going to the park. Then if he comes to you and says, Mom, can we go to the park? And you say, have you done your chores? If little Johnny comes to you and asks, can he go to the park? And you can see that his chores are incomplete, then you simply state, no, you can't go to the park because your chores are not done. Do not renege on your instructions and your consequences, because if you do, he will realize that you don't really mean what you say. So don't give in to the pressure. Stick with the consequences of not following the instructions. Do not give in. Follow through with the set agreed and mean what you say. Very, very important. So framing our requests for our children in a positive way is very important. For example, it's important to not say things like, don't forget your PE kit, Peter. Instead, you'd say, remember to take home your PE kit, because the subconscious mind actually doesn't recognize and hear negatives. So it will register as forget your PE kit. So in other words, if you say, don't forget your PE kit, the subconscious mind will just hear, forget your PE kit. So it's important to use positive words, positive phrases. Remember to take home your PE kit. Remember to take home your violin. Remember to do this, as opposed to don't forget. So use the words remember instead. Use I statements. For example, I'd like you to put away the toys on the table because we're about to eat soon. So that's a request. That's not an order. Instead of using words like don't or stop, we use the word please. For example, instead of saying stop shouting, we might say something like please lower your voice or talk softly. So instead of using the negative, don't do this, don't do that, don't forget this, we use words like remember or please lower your voice or please talk softly. So try and cut out the negative words there. So use words to empower. For example, would you like to put on your shoes by yourself, or do you need my help? So you're empowering the child to do things for themselves, and then also being available to help if needs be. So you encourage your children to make decisions for themselves that you as a parent don't have a fixed opinion about. For example, which ice cream would you like? You don't need to be involved in that. They can make their own decisions about things like that. So another important aspect of communicating with our children, particularly young children, is to not put labels on them, not call them names, or no shaming. So no labels, no naming, no shaming, and no name calling. So the old wives' tale of saying sticks and stones will break my bones, names will never hurt me is, it's a lie, because words have a huge effect on children as they do on adults as well. We've got to be very careful that we don't say things like you're lazy, you're clumsy, you're messy, because these words can stick with our children for a long time, and they can even take these kind of ideas and belief systems into their adult life. And name calling really destroys the spirit of a child, and it can have very long lasting emotional effect and a lot of damage for our child, and can lead to them having low self-esteem and a low self-worth. And shaming a child for making mistakes is also detrimental to their self-worth, and it can lead to poor relationships between the parent and the child. So the child may learn that failure or making mistakes leads to name calling or shaming, which is a big problem. So it's very important that we do not label our child, you're this, you're this, you're that, you're to this, you're to that. Please be very careful of that. So praise goes a long, long way with your child. Praise, you can nearly see them, their spirits are lifted, they've got a smile on their face when they're being praised. So praising your child for trying something new is important, whether it's a new food or trying a math homework problem by themselves, and praising that will boost their self-esteem. So if your child did a good job in tidying their room, let them know that. Let them know that you're pleased with that. So praise your child whenever they've helped in any way. So we human beings, we thrive on praise. We all like it, children and adults alike. So if our child comes home and they're very, very upset, it's obviously very important to listen to what's happened and ask them, encourage them to do some breathing exercises, breathing in deeply and using the affirmations, I'm calm and relaxed, can go a long way, or I can do this, or I'm doing my best, those kind of affirmations, and encourage positive self-esteem by asking your child to tell you all the good qualities that they have. So boost their self-esteem. Another thing I like to do in our family is what we call the gratitude jar. So we have a glass jar that we every day write down one thing that we're grateful for, and then by the end of the month or even a couple of months down the line, you can maybe over a family dinner take out your gratitude jar and see the things that you're grateful for. So encouraging our children to be grateful is a very important skill. It helps them to appreciate what they have and be positive. So let's talk about the opportunities then for better communication. When can we do this? Well, if we eat meals, and I encourage families to do that as much as is possible, humanly possible, is to have proper meal time where you're actually sitting around the dinner table and engaging in conversation, maybe even taking turns, asking your child or children what was the best part of their day, open-ended questions that they can openly talk about. Playtime is another time to engage in good communication, and bedtime as well, or bath time for young children. So ask children their opinions. They like to be involved in family decisions, and it's a really good thing to do. So it's not just all mum and dad's decisions. So engage them in their opinions as well. It's very important. So as I say, sitting around the dinner table is a good time to open up communication and ask these open-ended questions like, tell me more, or that sounds interesting, or that's amazing, tell me more about that, or what was the funniest part of your day today, or what was the best part of your day today, or what was the most exciting thing you did in school today. So just asking these open-ended questions, encouraging them to open up and to communicate with you. And this all helps the building blocks of communication and strengthens that bond between the parent and the child.